Well, like I say, my father-in-law had a business in Woodbury. They had come over from Dock Street from Philadelphia. They had a commission business there from the 30s. They moved to Woodbury in the 40s. They opened up a repacking house on potatoes and onions. And I joined the firm in '65, and I've been there ever since. And now I have two sons working with me and a grandson who is actually the 5th generation in the potato business. Well, I played high school ball at Woodbury, and I had a last-minute scholarship offer to Wake Forest. They had just moved the campus over to Winston-Salem with the help of Reynolds Tobacco. I was part of the first freshman class in Winston-Salem, and I played there for 4 years under Bones McKinney. My senior year, I got drafted into the NBA by New York. Well, I was actually the 10th overall, but it was early in the second round. There were only 8 teams in the league at that point. I played with Johnny Green and Richie Guerin. Willis Reed was a rookie my last year. Tom Gola, Hall of Famer. So, you know, I played with some good guys, and I played against that era. Had some really good players. Well, I don't know that it was my best game, but the game that I have done so many interviews on is probably the most talked about NBA game, and that was Wilt's 100-point game. We had beaten them earlier in the week in a doubleheader out in Chicago, and then we played in Hershey, which is where they trained. We had never been there, but that was where they trained, in Hershey. And then the following day, we played him in Madison Square Garden. He had 56 to get the next game against it. During a timeout, at the end of the first quarter, our all-star guard, Richie Guerin, comes into the huddle, and just out of the blue, he says, because Chamberlain had maybe 25 at the end of the first quarter. And Richie says, the big guy's going for 100 tonight, which nobody knew, but it turned out to be true. It was an up and down game. We scored 147 and lost. So, I mean, it was an up and down game, and there wasn't any stall ball, but we were fouling some other players to keep the ball out of his hands and whatnot, but that didn't last long. The amazing thing about Wilt that night, a historically 50% free throw shooter goes 28 for 32 from the free throw line. So he had it going that night. If it's ever going to be broken, the 3-point shot will help break it. He didn't have no 3-point shot. So it's hard to compare apples to apples, but yes, no one's come close, even with whatever advantage you want to give them, they haven't come close to 100. I played Wilt probably 40 or 50 times in my career, you know, because there were only 8 and then 10 teams, so we were playing, and they were in the same division as us, so we played them quite a bit. And I saw some amazing things that the guy did.